Has been such a big part of this homestand that wraps up today after 10 games. Day baseball at Minute Maid Park, indoors and free air conditioning as the Houston Astros host the Oakland A's in the finale of a 4-game series. And Dallas Keuchel will be making his 19th start of the season. This year's been a little bit different than his breakthrough Cy Young campaign from last season. But let's take a look back at Keuchel's journey as an Astro in our Diamond King segment presented by Texas Auto. Of course, Keuchel, he was a 7th-round pick out of Arkansas back in 2009. Made his debut in the 2012 season. You see his numbers, a ERA in the low 5s, but things started to change. 2013, pitched more than 153 innings. 2014, a sub-3 earned run average, an outstanding whip, 200 innings. And then last year, of course, led the American League in innings pitched and whip and WAR and won the Cy Young and the Gold Glove and also started the All-Star game. He's making the final start today before the All-Star break, hoping to give the Astros another victory. Astros baseball straight ahead. Astros and A's. Bill Brown and Alan Ashby will have the call to the game next on Root Sports.
Astros baseball on Root Sports is brought to you by H-E-B. No store does more than my H-E-B. And by Southwest Airlines. Transparency, low fares, nothing too high. The Astros take the field on this Sunday. It's the finale of a 10-game homestand with Dallas Keuchel coming out, shooting for win number 7 of the season. He has a 2.92 career ERA against Oakland, and as he warms up, he will be in the 5th spot in the rotation after the All-Star break. He'll be getting some extra rest. Has a 5.02 ERA, and Ash, he's been getting better those last few starts.
He has. He has sharpened up the command in the strike zone, and I think, for me anyway, that's what the issue has been throughout the course of the season. Dallas has made the comment that he's starting to feel like now he's tightening up his locations. When you're seeing Dallas on his game, he's going to get a lot of ground balls, trying to work down in the strike zone, utilize the sinker. That's a big weapon. That slider also can create the ground ball, and it's a big strikeout pitch as well for Dallas. He'll mix in the changeup on top of those pitches.
Here's the lineup he'll be facing. Bob Melvin goes with Coco Crisp in center field, Marcus Semien at shortstop, Jed Lowry at second base, Danny Valencia at third, Chris Davis in left field, Billy Butler the DH, Jake Smolinski in right, Yonder Alonso at first, Matt McBride is the catcher, and lefty Sean Manaea will be on the mound. Inside Minute Maid Park, where it's been really nice to have air conditioning this homestand. It's been in the mid-90s throughout this homestand, and today we woke up and we saw the Sahara dust outside in Houston. Not sure how that happened, but anyway, Keuchel's corner is ready to go, Ash.
I think some of the folks were cleaning up some of the work that's been done on the highways. Yeah, may the folks in beards enjoy their afternoon.
And Keuchel is going to work on Crisp now, the switch hitting leadoff man. He delivers, and there's a foul ball for strike one on Crisp. A .246 hitter with 7 homers, 37 runs batted in. He's hitting 20 points higher as a right-handed batter. 93 degrees at game time today. Crisp is 2 for 8 in this series. He sat out a 1-game suspension. Bouncer Keuchel cuts it off and tosses to first. Danny Wirth at second was moving behind second base, but Keuchel makes it such an easier play when he does that.
Yeah, that fifth infielder, it makes a huge difference. Dallas is a terrific defender. Watch how he squares it up right there and is able to make the maneuver to make the play. So many pitchers get caught in that finish that they can't even make that kind of adjustment. That's the way you do it if you want to be the fifth infielder.
He's done that to the tune of a Gold Glove. Now Marcus Semien, who leads shortstops in homers with 19 in the American League, takes ball one. He has .242 for an average and 46 runs batted in. A potent number 2 hitter in Semien. That comes in for a strike. Vic Carapazza is the home plate umpire. And it's 1-1 for Keuchel. Foul ball takes the count to 1-2. Keuchel with a career record of 2-3 against Oakland, a 2.92 ERA, is making his 11th career start against the Athletics. First time he's pitched against them this year. Inside for a ball, and he'll draw them in Oakland on the next road trip, with the break coming starting tomorrow, and then the Astros resuming Friday in Seattle, and then moving on to Oakland after that. Got him looking.
Now when he gets spotted on the edges like that, you'll get some of the looking strikeouts. Dallas a winner his last 3 times out, beating in order Kansas City, the Angels, and Seattle. And that's beautifully spotted.
This is the 10th game between these two clubs, and yet Keuchel has not faced this team this year until today. Jed Lowry, with 2 homers, 25 runs batted in, has a .284 average. And he lays off. Ball 1 to Lowry. Lowry's 4 for 15 in this series. He's batted first, second, and third in the 4-game series. Lines it into right field. And Lowry has the first hit of the game. He's aboard for Valencia.
He is quite a nice little hitter. Not as rangy maybe as some people would like defensively in the infield, but offensively he gets it done.
Lowry, of course, former teammates with these guys. He knows the Astros players very well. Danny Valencia is 2 for 9 in this series. A .307 season underway for Valencia. 12 homers, 33 runs batted in, and a good .502 slugging percentage. He's on a 4-game hitting streak right now. He is 7 for 12 lifetime with 2 homers against Keuchel. And that is strike one.
That is the location that led to the Cy Young Award, quite frankly, last year. Being able to spot it like that.
It's 1-1. Last 4 starts, as Ash talked about, have gone really well. There's the lifetime record. Career ERA of 2.92 for Dallas against Oakland. He's had 7 straight quality starts against the Athletics dating back to 2014 in April. 1-2.
Again, keeping it under that strike zone after getting ahead, that is crucial.
It's 2-2. Dallas beat Seattle 5-2 against Taijuan Walker and gave up 2 runs in 6 innings earlier on this homestand. Valencia swings and misses, striking out to end the top of the first. With no runs, a hit and a man left, the Astros come up against Sean Manaea in just a moment. Starting lineup is brought to you by Southwest Airlines. George Springer returns as the starting right fielder and leadoff man. It's Marwin Gonzalez at first base. Jose Altuve, the DH, bats third. He's followed by shortstop Carlos Correa, center fielder Carlos Gomez, third baseman Luis Valbuena, catcher Evan Gattis, second baseman Danny Wirth, and left fielder Jake Marisnick.
And the young left-hander Sean Manaea on the hill, 24 years of age, 3-5 on the year, 5.85 the ERA. His last win coming back June 1st, that against Minnesota. Now just 1 run in 5 innings since then. Well, I take that back. He has won a game since then. So 1-3, make that 1-2 in the following 4 starts.
George Springer gets it going for Houston, and that's strike 1 for George. He came in as a pinch runner yesterday, otherwise had the day off. 263, 19 homers, 51 runs batted in. George has been on quite a run since he was installed as the leadoff man, but his legs have been heavy, according to A.J. Hinch. And A.J. gave him yesterday off. 1 ball, 1 strike. Springer had started every game prior to that, 112 in a row. And that was the second longest active streak in the majors, behind Robinson Cano's 144. Springer bounces back to Manaea. 1 out. This lefty has faced the Astros once this season in Oakland up against Mike Fiers. Made his major league debut back on the 29th of April. Got a no decision, giving up 4 hits and 4 earned runs in 5 innings. Marwin Gonzalez faces him next. At 256, Marwin has 6 homers, 24 runs batted in. As a right-handed batter, he's hitting .265 with a .449 slugging percentage. Marwin bounces one, and that's foul for strike 1. Manaea was born in Valparaiso, Indiana. He was drafted after the first round by Kansas City, and then Oakland got him in a trade last July. That was the Ben Zobrist deal. He went to Indiana State, listed at 6'5", 245. One and 1. This time out, he gave up 6 runs in 5 innings in a loss at Minnesota Tuesday. He's had home run problems. He has surrendered 10 long balls in 60 innings. Right-handed hitters are at .316 against Manaea. Lefties 176. So the lineup is stacked with right-handed hitters for A.J. Hinch. In the dirt, and it's 2-1. But the Astros have failed to hit in 2 of the 3 games in this series. They lost yesterday 3-2. Kendall Graveman took a shutout to the 9th inning against them. And Rich Hill stopped them 3-1 Thursday night. They got only 3 hits in that game. 2-2. So 5-4 on this homestand, and 47-41 overall. If they win today, they will go to the All-Star break 7 games above 500. Last year they went to the All-Star break 7 games above 500 at 49-42. Manaea gets a strikeout.
Pumping some heat at 93, bringing it up in the zone. You can look at our Mattress Firm Super Mo as we take another peek at that fastball thrown right over the bat of Marwin Gonzalez.
Now digging in, All-Star Jose Altuve. He got his All-Star jersey along with Will Harris before the game today on the field. Altuve at .343 leads the league in batting average. He has 14 homers, 51 runs batted in, .545 slugging. There's a big cut for strike one. 119 hits for Jose. He leads the American League. On this homestand, he's hit .222. 8 for 36 with a homer, 5 runs batted in. Fouls that one. No balls, 2 strikes. Bob Watson has the club record for hits before the All-Star break, 123, 1973.
Well, that's a lot of hits for a guy who didn't run well.
You bet it is.
There's just no infield hits involved there.
No. Altuve takes it. It's 1-2.
Took a close pitch too.
Did.
He's surprised if this doesn't challenge the zone.
Manaea pitched well against Texas May 16th. Beat that club 3-1. 1 run in 6 2/3. Grounded to third. Bobbled a little bit by Valencia. Safe at first. The bobble cost him.
That gives you a great idea as to how Altuve gets down the line. One little bobble, and it's enough to enable Altuve to beat it out. You just can't make any kind of mistake on it.
And Altuve hustling all the way is aboard. It's an error on Valencia. That's his 12th. Carlos Correa. Correa, broken bat, looping single to right field, gets Altuve into second base. And Carlos gets his 3rd hit of the series. Not well struck. That keeps everything moving for Carlos Gomez.
Smile maker right there. Tough pitch down and away, hits the end of the bat, breaks the stick. Take him every time.
Two men on now, and go Gomez with 4 homers, 23 runs batted in, a .217 average, is looking for his first hit in the series. 0 for 11. He's hit .156 on this homestand, 5 for 32 with a homer and 5 runs batted in. Big cut, and there's strike one. The Oakland Athletics have made 54 errors this year. It's a lot of extra outs for the pitchers to have to pick up. They had gone 15 games without an error, and that was an all-time franchise record until this inning. Slowly hit. Simeon takes it on over to Lowry. No runs, 1 hit, 1 error, 2 men left. After 1, there's no score.
The Coca-Cola Value Nights package is one of the best ballpark bargains. Available for select Monday to Thursday regular season games. This offer scores you a ticket, a hot dog, soda, and popcorn, all for just $18. To purchase tickets, visit Astros.com/Coke Value or call 1-877-9-ASTROS.
Thank you, Brett Dolan. Go beer to go home, they say. Keuchel's on the mound. 0-0. Each club with one hit in the first inning. Chris Davis is the batter. He fouls it for strike one. Davis, a .252 hitter, has 19 homers, 55 runs batted in. He's 2 for 14 in this series. Over Keuchel. Here comes Worth. Danny Worth.
Played as a do-or-die play there, and a nice little pickup on the short hop. Yeah, Danny didn't feel, with some speed going down the line, that he had any extra time to lay back. It's a good infield.
Altuve getting a chance to DH a couple of times in this series to rest his legs, and that puts Worth in the game at second base today. Billy Butler has had some good swings in this series. Strike one to Butler, .253, 2 homers, 22 runs batted in. He is 2 for 5 in this series with a double and RBIs. Drawn 3 walks. Inside for a ball to make it 1-1 with Jake Smolinski on deck.
I think Billy Butler was trying to buy a hit by pitch right there.
That's the way it appeared. You were on his program today, Ash. Country Breakfast.
Yeah. It's not a bad program.
Fly ball out to left center field. Here's a long run from Marisnick and Gomez, and they play it off the wall. Gomez firing into second. Butler is going to be out.
Billy Butler can tell you right now, it's getting harder and harder to find a double in this league. Strong arm from Carlos Gomez, and in this case, very accurate.
Nice tag by Danny Worth.
Yeah, that was not an easy play for Danny Worth, but watch what the boys in left center field are able to do, bringing it in. I don't know, that one could potentially go the other way if challenged.
Doesn't appear they're intending to challenge it.
Oh no, he got him on that shin guard prior to the other leg, I think.
Okay. Well, it's a single and gunned down by the center fielder. 8-4 play for out number 2. Now Jake Smolinski bats. That's a long single.
Maybe I should say, following a country breakfast, it's hard to get a double.
313 for Smolinski, 4 homers and 16 runs batted in. Well, just imagine if you had eaten a large stack of blueberry pancakes trying to run out a ball like that, Ash.
I don't have to throw if into that. Well, the running portion, yes.
Off the plate, and it's a 2-ball, no strike count.
Did you lay off the dining options?
Yes.
Well, good for you. Get yourself a double today, Brownie.
Brett Dolan and I are trying to get in better condition.
Brett, I saw he was working it hard.
Bouncer in the hole. Valbuena to his left. On over to Marwin. No runs, 1 hit. Big play at second by Gomez and Worth to keep this game scoreless.
Carlos Gomez in left center field as he makes a great throw. We are also looking at our defensive outfield rankings for the Astros, brought to you by Lexus. Great throw, and you see that reflected somewhat as we see the yellow, maybe coin flip off of Carlos Gomez. Great strength with the arm, little questionable at times with accuracy. Jake Marisnick, the red light, and in right field. For the Astros today, I have to take another peek. That's George Springer back out there, of course, and you don't run on George.
Ball one to Luis Valbuena, 269, 12 homers, 37 runs batted in, 6-game hitting streak, and some game winners for Valbuena. There's a broken bat looper to right field. Smolinski over. That's in for a hit for Valbuena. That'll give him a 7-game hitting streak going into the All-Star break.
Swing it big and get jammed like that. It'll force an outfielder back for a step. Nobody's going to catch this anyway.
He's now 11 for 30 on this homestand, Ash.
Been very impactful as well with those big swings.
3 homers, 10 runs batted in on this 10-game homestand for Valbuena. Gaddis homered off Manaea in Oakland. Here's a bouncer, and it goes from Simeon on to Lowry. Safe at first. Give Danny Worth a chance to bat with a runner at first and 1 out. Worth was hitting .340 at AAA Fresno. Danny's had 28 Houston at bats with a .179 average, no homers, 1 run batted in. He came in to play in the 8th inning at second base Friday night. Came up with an RBI single and his only at bat in that one. That was his first run batted in of this year, and his first in the majors since May of 2014 when he was with Detroit at Baltimore. This is his 7th start with the Astros. Ball 1 to Worth. Great numbers at Fresno. .340, 8 homers, 36 runs batted in, and .998 OPS. He was leading the Pacific Coast League in on base average when he was promoted. Worth takes it, and it's 2-0. Alex Bregman should be playing later today in the All-Star Futures game in San Diego. He has really had a great time of it in the minor leagues this year, starting at Corpus and then being promoted to Fresno. In for a strike, and it's 2-1. Manaea has thrown his fastball 61% of the time this year. His changeup is a pitch he throws 23% of the time. 2-2.
Yeah, for Alex Bregman, he's placed himself right on the doorstep, hasn't he?
You bet.
Slider sweeps down and in. Another thing for a guy that was tearing it up at AAA, Danny Worth. You come to the big leagues and you wind up sitting so much of the time, it's hard to remain even close to sharp.
Yes. 3-2.
No, it's not like it's fair to sit here and say, well, why such a huge gap between AAA and the major leagues? A lot of times it's, are you hot, are you not, and how do you stay hot when you're not playing?
Well, that's the truth. Yeah, theoretically, a player might be just on a roll that's about to play out at AAA when he gets promoted, and then he's not playing very much in the big leagues. Runner going, that's strike 3. Gaddis gets an unusual steal of second. That's his first stolen base attempt of the year.
And I'm not sure why there was no throw forthcoming here. Nice job of framing it, but it was almost as if there was a lack of recognition of a runner in motion.
Pretty much. First Astros game. Congratulations. Jake Marisnick has a runner at second now, so that stolen base could play into some scoring. Time is called by Matt McBride. The catcher has something in his eye, it would appear. Yeah. Marisnick will be shooting for his 8th run batted in with that man there, Gaddis, on the first stolen base of his career. Well, that's got to be rewarded with an RBI, right?
If it's not, something is amiss here.
Jake would love to comply with that. He's been getting more playing time in left field. And by the way, Colby Rasmus still not feeling good. He's had an ear infection. Marisnick, 186, 1 homer, 7 runs batted in. Not sure if Colby would have played anyway against the left-hander Manaea, but he's just not feeling up to par yet. And that's given Marisnick some starts in left field this homestand. Jake fouls it back. It's a 1-ball, 1-strike count. There's Colby.
Going to get Colby back healthy for the second half.
Jake is starting for the 4th straight game. Got a call in right field yesterday for George Springer. Gaddis with 11 triples, but no steals until a moment ago. How about that?
There's a set of stats you won't find many times.
Oh, that is weird. 1 and 2.
11 triples out of nowhere last year. I don't think Gary Pettis had the heart to stop him at second anytime.
He only had 1 stolen base attempt in his career and 12 career triples. So that is quite an unusual pairing that we haven't seen. Foul ball. Well, one of your former teammates is in the house today. Kevin Bass. He stole a few bases in his day.
He could hit the long ball. He could do it all. Kevin Bass, one of the really outstanding outfielders in Astros lore, and great overall guy.
Yeah, you're right. He's a
tremendous friend.
Yeah. Good to see him here today. Manaea gets a strikeout. That's number 3, and that ends the second with no runs, a hit, and a man left. No score after 2.
Two innings. Whether you're treating employees, hosting clients, or bringing out your church or youth sports teams to Minute Maid Park, Astros group tickets will create an experience your group is sure to remember. Visit Astros.com/groups or call 1-877-9-ASTROS to enjoy special pricing and great benefits by reserving your group today.
Thank you, Brett Dolan. Busy day on the concourse, passing out T-shirts for Keuchel's Corner and Beards. 0-0 after 2. Yonder Alonso gets it going in the third. 255 for Yonder. 4 homers, 26 runs batted in.
Saying you get a T-shirt with that beard?
You do. Yonder's had a nice series with 5 hits in 10 at bats, including a homer, 4 runs batted in. That's strike 1, and he has torched the Astros this year. He's hit .469 against them, 2 homers, 9 runs batted in, but they don't care about that.
Let's get Beard. That's good.
It's 1-1. He's hit some big home runs against Houston, including that 2-run shot Friday night. Oakland was able to take the lead in that 5-run inning. There's a fly ball deep to left field. Right there, Marisnick. One out as Alonso comes up just short.
Yeah, these Oakland A's have been a hitterish bunch here in the series.
Well, the Astros are 5-4 this season against Oakland. Dallas Keuchel faces Matt McBride. McBride, a .208 hitter, has no homers, 2 runs batted in. Stephen Vogt has been catching all the other games in this series. McBride takes. He's a 30-year-old backup. Well, he turned 31, in fact, in May. First came to the big leagues with Colorado in 2012. McBride takes it. It's 1-1 to Matt McBride. He went to Lehigh University.
Little continuance now today for Dallas Keuchel, starting to hit those really pitcher spots. Bottom of the knees, off the edges, both sides. And he gets a call on one.
He brought that one right back in over the corner.
Or did he?
Maybe.
See, that's the thing. Once you start establishing those zones, you will get a number of those pitches.
It's 2-2. Well, the Astros have won Dallas's last 4 starts. He's been trending in a good direction, and he's had much better run support. He gets a strikeout on McBride, his 3rd.
Slider we've talked about, top of the program. It's a very good strikeout pitch. Not generally when left quite there, usually more under the knees. But I would say the repertoire is starting to function now much closer to last year than we've seen a lot of the times early this year.
Got another first gamer, that little toddler.
It's all about the popcorn right now.
Strike to Coco Crisp. Coco grounded back to Dallas Keuchel.
Started with popcorn and then it turns into ERAs and FIP and all kinds of stuff.
Popcorn's much better than FIP. 0-2. Admit it, your favorite stat is FIP.
You know, I can't even say I'm approaching that stat. Well, Crisp was shy of approaching that pitch.
Oh, he's well out in front. Keuchel goes up for it and throws out Crisp. Dallas Keuchel elevates. He has a 1-2-3 3rd inning. They love it in the corner. No score.
0-0 game, bottom 3. Time for our Chevy Stroll poll. What is your favorite George Springer moment this season? How about the grand slam early at Yankee Stadium? You see the sleeves. It was cold in the Bronx early. Can't forget the catch up against the chain link fence at the Cell in Chicago. That would be number B. Here's the walk-off homer against Arizona. That's C. And then, of course, an 8th inning home run at St. Louis is D. Go to our Twitter page to vote. And, guys, I don't want to tell people how to do their business, but how do you beat a walk-off?
Fly ball toward the right field corner. Here's a long run for Smolinski into foul territory. Yeah, it's hard to beat that. Hey, Brett, here's a question for you. We've been getting some traffic on Twitter about is there any chance that George Springer can be named to the All-Star team because of an injury to Carlos Beltran? Have you heard anything about that situation?
Well, I have not. That's a great question, Brownie. There were a couple of National League players that got dinged, including Cespedes. And I was wishing that, you know, you never want to see an injury, but if there was going to be one, to have it in the American League. But we'll see if anything comes across later today during the game on that.
Springer takes. It's 1-1. Also a question for you, Ash, from Jason. Do any of the current Astros outfielders' arms compare to Richard Hidalgo's arm?
Doggy had a big arm. He really did. I would say there are probably 3 in terms of velocity that would compare there, no question. Carlos Gomez, for me, George Springer and Jake Marisnick all throw extremely well. You put the radar gun on them, they're going to be high velocity. In fact, we've even heard at times that Carlos Gomez has gotten over 100 miles an hour. But yeah, these are really big time arms we're talking about. I don't know if Doggy was quite in that range.
That's pretty hard to compare, isn't it? It's kind of like comparing the food items on this breakfast you ate today. We're getting a picture of it.
Let's see, you're right back on me again now. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, you didn't really eat that. No. It's what people are thinking that you ate, but you really didn't.
Go ahead and think on. We had some good options on pancakes, so I will say that.
Springer tried to check, and he did check. B.J. Rayburn with a call. It's 2-2 to George. James Montesi wants to know if reaching base on an error extends an on-base streak. No, it does not. A hit by pitch would extend it. A walk would extend it. Foul away, but not an error. Nope. Big Dobbs took a look at the All-Star jerseys that were awarded before the game to Altuve and Harris. And Big Dobbs says on Twitter, those are the most ugly, beautiful uniforms I'm thrilled to see members of my hometown team wear.
Isn't that the truth? I thought the San Diego Padres were breaking out their old unis again.
Where's Gary Templeton? Actually, you said that before the game. And then there was that old line about Templeton. I'm not starting, I'm not departing, but here are the jerseys for Altuve and Harris.
And the rest of your San Diego Padres. Yeah, can't you just see Templeton? I was going to say jogging it out there, but maybe walking it out there in that uni?
Oh, that's a different look for those guys. That might be an acquired taste. Springer with a hot shot. And the shortstop, Simeon, gets up and safe at first. Simeon made a nice recovery. Springer is credited with a hit.
I don't know if George ever felt like the legs were heavy, but they weren't heavy right there. Nice to see George sprinting it down the line. Very tough play at shortstop. Simeon is not one of the guys that's going to be referred to as having a gun of an arm. But he did all he had. Not enough to get George.
Hit number 3 for the Astros. Springer's aboard for Marwin Gonzalez. Marwin struck out in the first inning. There's ball 1. Our condolences go out to the family of Frankie B. Mandola, a great friend of the Astros and many people in this city. He's a guy who played football and baseball at Rice University, restaurateur, Great humanitarian. Had a lot to do with the Italian American Sports Foundation, giving scholarships to high school kids who are athletes. He will be missed. Roller to first. Here's Alonso. Foul ball is the call. And Gonzalez will come back with a 1-1 count.
It's where the ball is. It's not where the fielder is or the glove. It's where the ball is, and it was deemed to be in foul territory. If any portion of the ball is deemed to touch any portion of the chalk there, it would have been a fair ball, but obviously it was seen as otherwise.
And usually the home plate umpire will make that call up
right
until the ball gets to first base. That play is not reviewable, by the way. It's only reviewable on fair or foul when it gets into the outfield past the bases.
By the way, yes, I did realize that people got a T-shirt out there in Keuchel's corner. It's just a bad reference to an old line of you get a free bowl of soup with that hat. So just to straighten that one out.
You didn't need that today, though.
Not a bit.
Springer hasn't done much running. He's 6 for 12 in steals. With the Gaddis stolen base, the Astros are 7 for 8 against Oakland this year in stealing bases. One and 2 to Marwin. And most of the players won't be leaving Houston. They'll just be hanging out here for a few days.
Good changeup at 84, and it had Marwin out in front over the top.
Batting average against his changeup is .259. Springer's going on this one, and it's foul. And Manaea had gone to that high leg kick before, so if you catch him on that one, it's going to be a whole lot easier to steal. Steps off. He's been throwing his changeup more often to right-handed batters since June 1st, and that has made him a more effective pitcher. The right fielder comes over for it. Smolinski near the line with the catch. 1 out. And Jose Altuve follows. He'll be a busy guy, headed out for San Diego after the game.
Yeah, let's get him hot here this afternoon before he heads toward the All-Star game. Kind of been quiet with the bat, picking up some infield knocks and such.
949 on the hit meter for Jose. He's played in 180 consecutive games now. That's the longest streak in the majors currently. Luis Correa's on deck. That's strike 1 to Altuve. He's a .319 career hitter against Oakland.
Jose was kind of in the free swinging mode his first at bat, and winds up taking one he'd probably like to have back.
Bunting this time. Valencia throws it in time to get him. Close play at first. He really fired it.
When I saw that bunt laid down, I thought no chance. Danny Valencia got there quickly and made a very nice play. Nonetheless, surprising for me.
He did get him. Waiting to see if that would be ruled a sacrifice. With one out, it may not be. Carlos Correa singled to right field on a broken bat looper. First time up. Brett Dolan.
Ronnie, Carlos Beltran did play yesterday. In fact, he had 3 hits. He was dealing with some right tightness in his hamstring this week, but back yesterday and I guess healthy enough to play. Just don't Google Carlos Beltran injuries because you might want to set aside an hour if you do that. But it looks like he's okay.
Thank you. Correa takes it, and it's 1-1.
Not a bad pitch to take.
One ball, 2 strikes to Carlos. Susan Roberts wants to know where Julia has been. Julia's taking some time off. We cannot divulge her whereabouts. We'll be arrested if we do. That's called a swing. And Correa's down on strikes. No runs, a hit, and a man left. We go to the 4th inning. No score.
Look now at our Gullo fan cam. There's the folks. Now, got some great fans all over the place.
Oh, yeah.
And many a Dallas Keuchel fan.
Marcus Semien leads it off in the 4th inning. He takes ball 1. He was caught looking in the 1st. Keuchel versus Manayan will score through 3. Keuchel gets a swing. It's 1-1. Dallas has the 15th worst run support in the American League. But things are turning. You beat Kansas City 13-4, beat the Angels 10-4.
A couple of changeups here in this sequence. When you're scuffling to spot the fastball and the slider won't find its way in there either. It's hard to even decide to throw a changeup. There's another. So obviously he's kind of feeling it for the moment. Sly smile to go with it.
It's 2-2 to Simeon with Lowry and Valencia to follow. The Rangers lost last night, so the Astros remain 6.5 games back. Oakland is 15.5 games out. Rangers went to Kyle Loesch as their starting pitcher. They promoted him from AAA. Tap to third. That one hops foul for Valbuena. Tosses it over to Ron Washington, who will get it up to a fan. We saw Wash working a little pregame workout with Tyler Ladendorf today. And that's what he does so well, work with those infielders. Anthony Lewis wants to know, if they overturn a foul ball call and make it fair, how do they decide which base the batter gets? Well, we've come up with a formula. They take the time from home to first of the batter running. They divide it by pi r square and multiply by 4. No, it's just the umpire's judgment, really.
Actually, I kind of like the first choice.
It's whacked on a line to left center, cruising over for the catch. Marisnick. Oh, he gets such good jumps. Ball was scalded.
Numerous times we've seen a ball like this get lost, at least momentarily, in the lights. I don't know if Jake ever had this occur to him on this particular line drive, but as he makes the catch, watch, and sometimes that glove out to your left side as a right-hander can cause a tentative looking catch. Jake makes it nonetheless.
Jed Lowry single to right field. He took a pitch away from him and made a nice swing on it first time up. That pitch was a little bit more in on him. A foul ball, strike one. Happy birthday to McCullers Maniacs. We don't know how many Maniacs or which ones, but happy birthday.
Boy, have you opened the door now.
Our telecast is not the same without Julia, we're being told. 1 ball and 1 strike.
Let's slink away, okay?
In the air out to center field. Gomez is waiting. 2 down. Brandon Morrell wants to know, do you think the Astros make any moves before the trade deadline? What do you think, Ash?
You know, I'll say yes. I mean, it seems to be the safe bet actually these days. If something comes along, it's hard to say what is being sought right now by Jeff Luhnow and his staff, but you know, they're going to do their diligence. If something comes along that's viable and meaningful for the team, I think they'll take their shot.
Ball 1 to Valencia. Valencia struck out swinging in the first inning.
Yeah, I'm curious to hear what you think on that.
I would agree with you. Jeff has had that track record of being active. 1 ball, 1 strike.
Talk about doors being open. How about that outside edge?
Yeah. Open up the screen door.
I apparently was a little harsh on the happy birthday, so
sorry. Well, how about Happy Father's Day then? Does that work?
See, here you go now. You got more birthday requests.
Yeah. We get about 12,000 of them before the day is out. 3 balls and a strike. If it is your birthday today, happy birthday.
So if it's that easy with you, Brownie, can I join you for your barbecue this afternoon?
Yeah. That one goes foul over Packers' corner. 3 balls, 2 strikes. It's been a great promotion. Good to see all those fans.
Folks thought if they put a beard and a t-shirt on, they were immune to the line drives there, but not so.
We had a suggestion on Twitter for the bearded battery mates today. Foul ball. See if we can find it. Evan Gattis catching Dallas Keuchel, the bearded battery. Strohs Bros is having a birthday. You knew that would be.
Yeah, it was inevitable.
Valencia takes a 2-out walk.
You just satiated his need anyway.
Yeah, if it's not really your birthday, you know we don't know. How do you feel about games as a DH included as part of a consecutive game streak? Was that the case for Ripken? Well, you know, you'd have to be fine with it, right? That's the rule.
Yeah, it is the rule. How many times did Cal Ripken perform as a DH in that streak?
Great question. It would be nice to know that,
You know, you've got a guy to your right that just might be able to come up with the answer to that.
Philip K. Boudreau. Yeah, he'll get it. There's ball one to Chris Davis. Davis grounded out earlier. It's wide open for him on the right side. One ball and one strike. Boy, is it great to have air conditioning on a day like this.
Ideal. You know, I don't recall Cal being a DH, but
I don't either.
He was that guy that wanted to be on the field every day.
Yeah.
Heavy legs or no heavy legs.
Here's guessing he might have had a few at DH, but not sure. Bouncer up the middle. There's Worth positioned right behind second. And he throws him out. It's 0-0 after 3.5.
Come celebrate your birthday the Astros way. Surround yourself with the excitement of cheering on the Houston Astros while throwing a birthday party at the ballpark. For more information, visit Astros.com or call 713-259-8996. And Ash, you had some special guests up in the booth yesterday during your birthday week.
Yeah, not only yesterday, today had them all come up. The whole gang, by the way, a couple of my kids and their kids and all that sort of thing. Photo time up here along with Bill Brown.
Smolensky with a nice running catch on that foul ball by Gomez. One pitch, one out. Yeah, and we had these kids too.
Yeah, this is
Randy Koopmans had her kids, and they got up on the counter and took some photos. And then your family came in after that.
It was family day here at the yard.
It really was. Enjoyed seeing all the kiddos. These guys are going to be taking our jobs very soon. That, on the other hand, is
there's your
story.
reaction to that statement,
yeah,
right?
There's a cue.
Exactly.
It'll get better, honey. It's bound to get better. Valbuena takes strike one. He singled to right field earlier.
Child just received the word that Jose Altuve is hitless today.
Either that or she just saw the All-Star jerseys. One of the two. No balls, 2 strikes.
Where is Templeton?
I ain't starting. I ain't departing. 1-2. Yeah, there have been several replacements named for All-Stars who are injured, as Brett told us, or in the case of maybe a pitcher who started Saturday or Sunday and wouldn't be able to pitch in the game Tuesday night. There was a replacement name for one of those today. So yeah, it's hard to say about whether George Springer could make it. He could. Chances wouldn't be that great, but if there's an injury today to an outfielder, yeah. Valbuena strikes out. That's number 5.
By the way, we're told, Brownie, that Cal Ripken did not DH until after 2000. That was following the streak. So
interesting. Very good information.
The heat from Manaea. Something about that lefty versus lefty that is different than righty versus righty.
He DH'd 10 times in 2000 and 15 times in 2001. After that streak, as you said. Evan Gattis is 0 for 1, but he stole a base. There's ball 1.
As a DH? Does that count?
Well, his streak was over. Oh, are you talking about Evan Gattis as a DH?
Oh, but Evan Gattis. So, yes. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah. Now, Evan, we talked about his triples and his steal. You played with a guy, Roy Howell. He had 31 career triples, but stealing 9 for 23.
No kidding. Roy Howell is not a guy I would have guessed to have all those triples. Pretty good hitter.
Inside to Evan, and it's 2-1.
We called him Target. Had a big old wound on one of his massive forearms. Apparently somebody shot him with an arrow. So he was the target.
Goodness. High chop goes foul. 2-2. When Gattis is the starting catcher, the Astros record is 11-6.
Speaks very highly to the work done by Evan Gattis.
He is 2 for 4 against Manaea. Hit a homer and had an RBI single off him in April. Ground ball here, backhanded. Valencia. In the 4th inning, the Astros go out quietly, and it's no score through 4. Baseball on Root Sports is brought to you by Southwest Airlines. Transparency, low fares, nothing to hide. By Toyota, let's go places. And by Academy Sports and Outdoors, donating $100 for each Astros home run and $200 for each Correa home run to Houston Children's Charity. Love the socks on that grounds crew. No score, so we'll just check out some orange right now. Youngster in the cap. She's showing me a photo on Twitter.
Instantaneous growth on both of our parts.
They put beards on us. Benjamin Oster says it's not my birthday or anything. I just love you both.
See, now that's a fan, right?
Yeah. Billy Butler singled and he was thrown out trying to stretch it to a double. There's ball. So happy non-birthday, Benjamin.
Beautifully said, Ron.
Colton Bradley, Ash, my question is, how do we get to the playoffs if the mighty Houston Astros keep playing good baseball?
I assume he means himself.
Yeah.
Because the Astros, you just keep playing good baseball.
Right.
Is there an app for that?
There is an app for that. We're still trying to find it. Anthony Lewis says, what do y'all think happens to Bregman? Because he's not going to be playing SS for the Astros anytime soon. Rolled out to second base. Worth takes it on over to first to get Butler 1 down. We have a scoop for you. Anthony Lewis just checking the lineup card for the Sirius AM All-Star Futures game in San Diego at Petco Park, and Alex Bregman is batting second for the USA team and playing third base.
So who is the shortstop in that game? Can you tell?
No, but we're going to make an effort to find out if we can just get this computer to work, which doesn't always happen. Here's Smolinski now. There's ball one.
Alex Bregman, when he does get to the Astros, is going to be something other than a shortstop, likely.
Dansby Swanson is the shortstop, Ash.
Big name. Wasn't he he was clearly a #1.
Yes. First player drafted.
Yeah.
Yep. We'll be going to Brett Dolan in a moment after this 1-0 pitch. And it's a strike. Brett Dolan.
Well, those guys have had quite the rivalry. So a couple years ago on Team USA, Bregman actually forced Swanson to go to second base. Swanson was drafted #1 overall ahead of Bregman. Now they're on the Futures team, and it's Swanson backs at short and Alex to third base. So back and forth they go.
Keep an eye on him. There's a shot up the middle. Worth is there. On over to Marwin. The ball hit pretty well, but Worth was positioned. 2 outs.
Dallas Keuchel was positioned as well. Let's see this ball go by Dallas. Yeah. Dallas is fortunate that didn't catch any piece of him. Looked like the left hand, left arm was a rather precarious position.
Yes, it did. Worth has made the last 3 plays and 4 in this game for Keuchel. Yonder Alonso hit a fly ball to left. It was caught on the warning track by Jake Marisnick. Well, here's the chopper to Marwin, and it's fair ball. And so we'll get into that later because this inning went very quickly for Dallas, and it's scoreless through 4.5.
As we go to the bottom of the 5th inning, here now are our league leaders, brought to you by Houston Methodist. We're not going to talk about that team that leads in the American League West, just the other clubs. Baltimore Orioles lead the American League East. They've had some rough spells too. Cleveland Indians have played very well. The Washington Nationals in the National League East. In the Central, the Cubbies, we know all about them. And then the Giants. It's an even year, folks.
Oh. 6.5 games up with a 56-33 record for the Giants.
Did you think the Giants would have the best record in baseball at this point?
No. Strike 1 to Danny Worth. 1-1. I really like Washington in the National League coming into this season.
They've been playing well, haven't they?
Yeah. From now on, July 10th will be Astros Twitter's birthday. 2-1 to Worth, trying to lead it off with Marisnick and Springer to follow, and he never gets bored with winning. More on Bregman, though. Let's give a serious answer on Bregman if we can.
I'll step away.
2-2. Well, Bregman's been playing shortstop since he got promoted to AAA. The plan is to start playing him at other positions, but wait a little while until he gets settled in more. But he's been just bashing the ball. Is he positioned to be able to come up and help the Astros? Yeah, it would seem that he is. There's not a need right now. I think a lot of people are looking at this Carlos Correa situation and wondering if he would move to third. I would not expect that at all anytime soon.
I don't see that. You know, part of the deal is when you've got a guy who's in position and that's where he wants to be and you want to keep him happy, you keep him there as long as he deserves it.
Worth singles to center field.
There's that AAA stroke.
He's having a nice game. He's made several plays at second, and now he has a leadoff single here in the fifth.
Performed very well at the big league level. He's one of those guys that kind of drops the barrel below the hands. And it works very effectively here.
That's hit number 4 for the Astros, the third leadoff man in an inning to get a single. And Jake Marisnick will follow. Valencia's in tight at third. Marisnick has been known to bunt. He struck out in the second inning. And the throw goes over. Toronto is leading Detroit 5-1. They're in the bottom of the 7th at Toronto. R.A. Dickey pitching very well. Anibal Sanchez started for Detroit. Josh Donaldson is 23rd for the Blue Jays. Jake tried to push a bunt, and it's foul ball, foul tip for strike one. A foul tip is a foul ball that goes directly into the catcher's mitt. Like he was trying to push that bunt with a left-handed pitcher on the mound. That's what often happens. Try to get it by him on the bare hand side. And out toward the second baseman. And this bunt goes foul. It's 0-2. Toronto is 10 games above 500 at 50-40. Detroit is 4 games above 500. Yankees are bashing Cleveland 11-2 in the bottom of the 5th inning.
There goes that vaunted Cleveland pitching.
Yeah. Foul back. Still no balls, 2 strikes on Jake. Abandoning the bunt now with 2 strikes, trying to hit his way on.
You know what? The Indians aren't just a really good pitching team. They are among the better teams offensively.
Yeah, they've come a long way. Santana's hit about 20 homers now. Well, they've got several guys. They're kind of like the Astros were about 45 games ago. Several players have picked up the pace with the bats all at the same time. Jonathan wants to know where he can watch the Futures game tonight. Not sure, Jonathan. Who's carrying that? We'll try to find out. Strike 3 call. And strikeout number 6.
Manaea comes up and in with the fastball. Jake backs off. Boy, it's so frustrating at bat when you're trying to lay down a couple of bunts, can't get it done, and get rung up. Good pitch, though.
The MLB Network is carrying the Futures game tonight. George Springer is 1 for 2 in infield, hit in the 3rd. Simeon, Lowry, and Alonso turn 2. Through 5 innings, there's no score. Dallas Keuchel and Sean Manaea in a 0-0 game through 5. The Athletics and Astros with game 4 of their 4-game series to take you up to the All-Star break. And it's gone quickly through 5. Matt McBride leads it off in the 6th inning. He struck out in the 3rd. Keuchel has struck out 3. He got 3 ground ball outs in the 5th inning. Eight ground ball outs in the game. There's a dive, and both players unable to get there, Valbuena and Correa, as McBride found a hole and singled to left field. Hit number 3 allowed by Keuchel.
Yeah, this game again for Dallas Keuchel, probably one of the best efforts this year. When you're looking for the same signs as you saw last year, and with the base hit being just kind of a ground ball toward the end of the bat, finds a hole. That's a Dallas Keuchel style game that's going on.
Keeping the ball down. Crisp has hit the ball on the ground both times. Keuchel made that excellent play you saw a moment ago in the highlights as he elevated to get Crisp in the 3rd inning. Crisp showing bunt. He takes ball 1 with Marwin Gonzalez and Luis Valbuena charging. Crisp is an excellent bunter. Jaron Hall wants to know if you think Craig Reynolds was the best bunter you played with.
I just dropped a yes on that. Craig could bunt with anybody.
This bunt brings out Gaddis, and he throws to first base to Marwin Gonzalez on the sacrifice for out number 1. McBride into second on the 2-3 sacrifice.
Evan Gaddis didn't panic at all, just took his time.
Joe Musgrove, one of the top Astros pitching prospects, is starting the Futures game tonight for the USA team. Semien struck out looking, and he lined out to left.
Was the Futures game previously known as the minor league all-star game, or some version thereof?
I don't think so, no. That's strike 1. That one's tapped foul. And again, even the foul ball is indicative of how that ball is being kept down. You see the lineup card right there from Jim Bowden of ESPN on that lineup. Happy birthday, Kara. It's her 35th birthday.
And you are easy. How many future major league names did we just see?
Ooh.
Beautiful job by Evan Gaddis.
1 and 2. Somebody had a line about here, Will Moriarty. Dansby Swanson sounds like a character in a Jane Austen novel. He could play.
Have you seen him play?
Yeah, a little bit on TV.
It's a good place to watch people play.
Broken bat. That's a hit into left field. And here's Ron Washington sending the runner. McBride. The throw is way offline. And it's 1-0 Oakland. Semien into second after the broken bat RBI single. And Marisnick's throw just took off.
And Jake had a shot too. And he knows it. He's very upset with himself. We've talked about the velocity. He had plenty on that throw. The accuracy, which is normally outstanding, not there at all. I don't know if the ball just, I don't know what happened in terms of where this ball wound up, but Jake was coming to get his man. But not with that toss.
There's no error being ruled.
Right there, you've got a runner just getting to the bag at third. That was a golden shot for Jake.
A 1-0 now. That's hit number 4 for Oakland. No error. Semien was ruled to have taken second on the throw to the plate. Jed Lowry's 1 for 2. Lowry looks at ball one.
Ooh, that stings. You know that Dallas Keuchel understands what he had in left field. Jake Marisnick is a guy that's going to get that man the majority of the time. Jake clearly was not happy.
Fouled away by Lowry. It's 1-1. It's Washington 3, the Mets 2. Bottom of the 8th, that's Citi Field. Jose Reyes has hit 2 home runs. They both came off lefty Gio Gonzalez. And Daniel Murphy hit number 17.
What a year he's putting together.
Tremendous year. Semien was dancing off second. The pitch is a ball. 2-1.
A couple of pitches in this sequence have seen Semien just extending that lead like crazy. If he had been able to time it out, he was gone.
Danny Worth, as you see, is not too far from second base. He'll try to keep him honest.
Keuchel's quick on that move. I wouldn't be surprised if he decides to come in there.
Now 3-1 to Lowry. Valencia on deck. Yankees got 6 in the top of the 5th. The Indians have scored 6 in the bottom of the 5th. It's 11-7 New York. Cleveland still batting. Tyler Naquin hit his 9th homer. Bouncer slowly hit. Valbuena in front of Correa. 2 outs. Semien to third. And Valencia will be the batter. Brent Strom is coming out. Now Valencia 0 for 1 with a walk in this game is 7 for 13 lifetime against Keuchel.
I wonder how much of this conversation is about Valencia versus Chris Davis. Both dangerous hitters. Valencia the better overall hitter of the two. And you know, how do you best see yourself getting out of this inning?
Yeah, perhaps don't give Valencia anything to swing at if he wants to swing at something out of the zone.
Dallas Keuchel has earned the right to say, you know what, I see myself having a better time with this guy versus that.
Right. Davis had not faced him before today. There's the breakdown on pitch count. 21 in the 4th inning, but he had a walk and didn't allow a hit in that inning. 74 in the game for Dallas. We'll quickly see what they decided on Valencia. Ball 1. Yeah, pitching around him should not be a particular issue at all. Davis, who's next, has grounded to second twice in this game. It's 2-0. And sometimes when the count gets to 2-0 or 3-0, they'll go ahead and have the catcher stand up and make it an intentional walk, but not in this case. That comes in, and it's 2-1.
More of that work by Dallas today. That pitch, probably one of the, probably if I say rare, people will have a count on number of pitches that have found the heart of the zone, but not many today in comparison to the painted pitches.
3-1 for Keuchel. Marlins 7, Reds 3, middle of the 7th inning in Miami. Ground ball foul. Makes it 3-2. Giancarlo Stanton hit his 20th home run. Minnesota and Texas are underway, scoreless after 1.5 in Arlington. Looks like Valencia expanded his zone a little bit on that one, and it's still 3-2. He doesn't walk much. 17, 18 walks now this season. close one, ball 4. Second walk, and they've both been issued to Valencia. Chris Davis will follow. Davis is 0 for 2 with 2 bouncers to second. The Orioles lead the Angels 3-1. They're in the bottom of the 6th inning. Behind Chris Tillman, their best pitcher. Chris Davis hit his 22nd home run. Tim Lincecum started for the Angels. He's out after 5 2/3, giving up 3 runs. Davis with a fly ball to right sends Springer back toward the corner for the 3rd out. 1 run scores on 2 hits with 2 men left. It's 1-0 Oakland.
Presented by authority of Houston Astros, LLC, and may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form. And the accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without the express written consent of Houston Astros, LLC.
It is a 1-0 lead for Oakland. The Astros come up in the home 6th inning, trying to crack Sean Manaea. He has held them to 4 singles in the first 5 innings. Marwin Gonzalez leads it off. He's 0 for 2, a strikeout, a fly ball to right. And Manaea throws one down around the knees for strike 1. It's 1-1.
Astros' woes continue against left-hand pitching.
Yep. They're 11-16 in games started by lefties. 2-1. They'll go with Pfister, McCullers, and McHugh in Seattle after the break next weekend. Fires and Keuchel will pitch in the Oakland series. 2-2 the count. And the Astros will be facing Paxton, Iwakuma, and TBA. TBA is on every major league roster.
Can't keep him out of the bigs.
No. Foul back. Red Sox lead the Rays 4-0 in Boston. They're in the bottom of the 7th inning. Boston making several moves. David Price is pitching shutout ball today. Jake Odorizzi started for Tampa Bay. David Ortiz hit his 22nd home run. Now the Boston club picked up Brad Ziegler among those moves they've made. They got Aaron Hill. They're making moves well ahead of that trade deadline.
Aaron Hill, it seems to me, would just simply be a guy to bolster their bench.
Yeah. Semien flanks it, and Marwin Gonzalez reaches.
Well, if you're scuffling along, take advantage of some breaks. Marcus Semien has been very good at shortstop this year after a rough year last year. And that's a break for you.
It's an error. His 9th of the year, second Oakland error of the day. And when it's that leadoff man in the inning, that can really bite. The Astros would try to make that happen with Jose Altuve. He reached on an error by the third baseman Valencia, and then he put down what was ruled a sacrifice bunt. Now he bunts. Barehanded. Valencia throws high and gets him. And Marwin takes a big turn. Here's the throw back, but he was back in safely. So Altuve gets his second sacrifice of the game, and Gonzalez is at second for Carlos Correa. That's indicative of how the Astros are struggling and having a hard time hitting Minaya.
I do hope for Jose this was an endeavor to come up with a base hit, because I hate seeing that bat give itself up. This time much easier for Danny Valencia.
Correa is 1 for 2. He had a broken bat single to right field in the first inning. Struck out in the third. Foul ball, strike one.
Love seeing the number of kids that have been outed, in particular here in this series.
Yeah, this is a prime time for families. Marwin's dancing off second. Minaya looks at him and steps back.
Yeah, I'm just not sure how, for me, I come to grips with the Astros hitting .227 against left-hand pitching this year. That's coming into play today.
Yeah, the explanations do not come quickly, do they? One and one. Well, you know, the expectations are so high for a player like Correa. He's barely been in the league for a year. He's hitting .205 against lefties. 1 homer, 7 runs batted in 80 at bats. A little early in his career to be worried about anything. Just take a nap. It'll get better.
Wake me when they score.
Isn't that what they say about the stock market? Fly ball goes out of play. 1 and 2.
That's an attitude that's pretty tough to take. Carlos gets a pitch to handle right there.
There wouldn't be any reason he couldn't hit left-handers.
Yeah, he does everything so well. And I just always surprised when he doesn't come through.
It's 2 and 2.
From technique to attitude, everything that comes in the package that is Carlos Correa, just exceptional.
Cubs lead Pittsburgh 5-4. They're in the last of the 7th at Pittsburgh. John Michael pitching for Chicago. Ripped to right center field. Here's a long run for Crisp. That is caught by the right fielder Smolensky. Here's the tag by Marwin. He gets to third on out number 2. Sounded good off the bat, but it was hanging up there long enough for Smolensky to make the play.
Kind of fought one off a little bit. There was in toward the hands. Still got the good part of the bat on it. But if he gets it, it's getting out of here.
Yes, it is. Carlos Gomez in a big at bat in this game. Comes up 0 for 2. Runner at third, 2 outs. Gomez looks at ball 1. Luis Valbuena's on deck. It's Atlanta 2, the White Sox nothing. They're in the top of the 7th inning. James Shields is pitching for the White Sox against Mike Foltynewicz. Joe Franco hit his 5th homer. Jace Peterson his 4th. Gomez with a bouncer. Valencia takes care of out number 3. It's no runs, no hits, 1 error, 1 left after 6. 1-0 Oakland.
The Seattle series is going to be Fister, McCullers, and McHugh. It's not easy coming back after a long break. Fister I trust the most to be ready after a long layoff and throw his bullpen over the break and manage himself and be ready to pitch on Friday night.
That's A.J. Hinch with our Geico quote of the day. And earlier this morning, he said he really can't wait for the opportunity this club has in the second half. He mentioned April spiraling out of control, and he says we played well enough to put ourselves within the right amount of distance to make it interesting the next 75 to 80 games, guys.
That's it. Thanks, Brett. There's ball 1 to Billy Butler. After the break at Seattle, it's Fister, McCullers, and McHugh. Fister was throwing a bullpen before this game today. And as A.J. told us yesterday about those 3, you talked about it, he said, well, Fister is a guy who really is going to be trusted to manage himself well here over the break and keep himself in sync, throw a bullpen. The club will leave Thursday about noon, Ash. You guys will gather here for the trip to Seattle and then work out upon arrival in Seattle. So
that workout specifically for the players.
I thought you were involved with that.
You know what? You're catching me off guard, but I'll be ready.
You were born ready. Remember
you were misinformed.
Remember a few years ago when you were coming in to do a game, broadcast a game, and Roger Clemens grabbed you to catch a bullpen for him?
Oh, that actually was kind of a treat. It was also really wrong on his part, but yeah, he got the street shoes on, the whole dressed up thing, and go out to the bullpen and catch a bullpen for one of the greats of all time. But thanks, Roger. You abused me sufficiently.
Now you walked in wearing a 3-piece suit, correct? That day?
Those were radio days, Brownie.
Okay, okay. Struck him out on a breaking ball. 1 out. That's strikeout number 4 for Dallas.
Again, that slider down and in to get the punch out. And you see Dallas on his game. The hitters just don't have an answer for the pitch. When he's been off earlier this year, it just wasn't as difficult for whatever reason.
Jake Smolinski is 0 for 2, 2 ground ball outs. Keuchel has looked good though. There's ball 1. 28,419 the paid attendance today. Ten ground ball outs for Dallas. It's 2-0. Cardinals 2, Brewers 1. Top of the 6th at Milwaukee. In for a strike, and it's 2-1.
Boy, this looks good for Dallas.
He's got some downward movement going, producing those grounders. It does. It looks a lot like last year. Let's go to Brett Dolan right now.
Ronnie, did you see the game between the Cardinals and the Brewers a couple of days ago where they had a review before the walk-off celebration? They had a review to make sure the player was safe so that the Brewers could run out and celebrate?
Yes.
How about that for bizarre?
That was bizarro. You're right. What are we going to see next? It's only begun.
It's kind of hard to hide the Gatorade in a review like that, isn't it?
It doesn't always stay cold.
You're just feet away from your intended target, but you got to freeze.
Oh, but the Gatorade or Powerade or whatever it is, it feels so much colder after a replay review, Ash. Struck him out lunging at an off-speed pitch. Yeah, this is the Keuchel of last year. 5th strikeout.
Yeah, there have been moments in other games, but I feel like watching him move through this game into the 7th now, it has felt more like the real deal. And I imagine deep down inside he would agree. There have been plenty of times when I'm sure he's felt, that's it. Now hang on to it.
Yonder Alonso is 0 for 2. There's ball 1. Well, you're right. We've had stretches of 3, 4, 5 innings at a time from Dallas when he has been in this kind of a group. He pitched 8 shutout innings here against Detroit in mid-April in a 1-0 win. 1-1.
He had the at-bat there in the 6th inning with Danny Valencia. One of those scenarios where you're trying to pitch around a guy. You don't want to make a mistake. Stay out of the zone, maybe under it. And he did so perfectly. Wound up walking him. But I think that was the intent going into that AB.
Right, but as far as putting the ball where he wanted to, he was doing that.
Exactly. He'll grumble at himself at times. Everybody does.
Really?
You haven't had that day yet, but it's coming.
I haven't heard you grumble at yourself.
Still a little bit on the horse side, but I hide it well.
3-1. Where's Jeff Blum, by the way?
I would imagine he's got some beach that he's focused on.
People want to know where everybody is. Where's Julia? Where's Jeff? Fly ball out to right field. George Springer with the catch. It's 1-0 Oakland here in the middle of the 7th inning. It's time for the singing of God Bless America.
Out of the 7th, let's check out the results of our Chevy Stroll poll. Earlier, we wanted to know your favorite moment of the season from George Springer. And no surprise, 51% say that walk-off home run against the Arizona Diamondbacks. Hard to beat a walk-off, Ronnie and Ash.
Oh, yeah, but there were other considerations. You're right. One of the moments the Astros have had, very memorable in that category. George Springer wins it. It is 1-0 Oakland right now as Luis Valbuena leads it off. He is 1 for 2. And there's strike one. Pat Neshek warming up for Houston. Sean Manaea has had one major league start without giving up a run. That was June 29th against the Giants. 5 2/3 innings of 6-hit shutout ball. He won it 7-1. He's given up one run in 2 other major league starts. 1 ball, 1 strike. The Astros have been handcuffed on 4 singles. And Manaea has worked around 2 Oakland errors to maintain this 1-0 lead into the 7th. Valbuena works it to a 2-1 count. Valbuena's done better and better against left-handed pitching as the season has moved along. He's hitting .281 against southpaws coming into this game. In the air, and that one is going to Jed Lowry. 1 out. Evan Gattis will be next. Evans 0 for 2.
Looking for the perfect location for your special event? Minute Maid Park provides elegant event spaces and high-end entertainment in one of Houston's most iconic sporting venues. Learn more about how you can have your special event right here at Minute Maid Park by calling 713-259-8800, or you can visit astros.com/special events.
Ball 1 to Evan Gattis, almost hit him on the foot. He's 0 for 2 today. Washington edged the New York Mets 3-2 at Citi Field. Gio Gonzalez beating Steven Matz. Jonathan Papelbon got his 19th save. Daniel Murphy hit his 17th homer. 2-0. So Murphy, who's been leading the majors in batting average the last few days, is hitting .348 at the All-Star break. Danny Worth is on deck. Gattis fouls it. 2-1 to Evan. Pat Neshek still at work in the bullpen for Houston. That's drilled by Semien into left center field. And the left fielder falls. The ball is loose. Here's Gattis going into second. Davis took a spill in the outfield, and Gattis winds up on second base.
Love watching Evan Gattis before particular pitches when he backs out, and you can see he's just deep in his head thinking about what's coming next. And he put it together with that last thought process. This one was hung out.
It's ruled a single and an error, Ash.
That's a little harsh. Pretty tough play out there. Should this be picked up easily? By who? Or by whom? And yeah, that's a little tough. And if it was picked up, does it stop the double?
Danny Worth is the batter. First baseman Alonso in tight. Valencia's in close. Worth is 1 for 2. Looking at ball 1 with Jake Marisnick on deck. Now Luke Gregerson has joined Pat Neshek. In for a strike. 1-1. And we see some stirring. The right-hander warming up for Oakland as well.
Try to sweep the slider back to the corner. I don't think so.
John Axford. Now 2-1. 94 pitches for Manaea. His pitch high with Oakland this year, 97. That was on June 7th at Milwaukee. Foul ball. 2 balls, 2 strikes to Danny Worth.
What do I look for now? Been watching that Evan Gattis stare.
Look for the fastball, young man. You have to be ready to hit it.
Adjust to the breaking ball.
Take 2 and hit to right.
There it is.
Good cut by Danny. Still 2-2. Michael Beckman wants to know if Colby Rasmus is available for pinch hitting duties. Yeah, he's available. Popped up. McBride back near the screen. Will not have a play on it. Glover wants to know what factor other than the runner advancing is needed for a sacrifice bunt. Well, I think what we were talking about in case of Altuve, for instance, in the 3rd inning, he bunted with 1 out. So if there's nobody out, you assume it's a sacrifice bunt. With 1 out, he might be bunting for a hit, and the official scorer would determine that. But if he advances the runner, he's almost always going to be credited with a sacrifice bunt.
Kind of the way it's become. Bunting for a hit doesn't seem to detract from that.
No. Bouncer goes foul. Still 2-2. Good question, though. In tight. Full count to work. Boy, has he done a job. He's really battling.
He certainly has. And Manaea has worked all sides of the plate quite well. And he probably deserved one right there.
Now the pitches get bigger. This deep into a 1-0 game. Four hits for Oakland, 3 for Houston. Oakland has committed 3 errors today. Bouncer up the middle. There's Semien. Throwing to first to get Worth. Gattis to third, 2 outs. And Jake Marisnick is the batter.
Pretty good range shown by Marcus Semien on that. But again, he's turned into a fine shortstop.
He had major fielding woes last year.
Ron Washington deserves so much credit.
Well, he does. Semien made 35 errors last season. He's made 9 this year. Marisnick is 0 for 2, 2 strikeouts. Strike 1. Boy, a hit here would go a long way for Jake Marisnick.
Trying to hit that first pitch a lot of times, but in this case, not a wise choice.
He's hitting 178 against lefties. 1-1. It's about what his overall average is. With more likely to be in the starting lineup against the lefty. It's 1-2. Now 103 pitches in for Manaea. It would be somewhat surprising if he lasted longer than 7 innings in this game.
And it would also be somewhat surprising if Bob Melvin wasn't elated with what he's gotten today.
True. Two balls and 2 strikes. Well, with a game Rich Hill pitched game 1 of this series, and now Manaea. The lefties have been very effective against the Astros. They did a number on Wade LeBlanc of Seattle Wednesday night. It's a full count now on Marisnick. Wade Miley pitched well against them last Monday, 6 2/3 innings and 2 runs. So the lefties, and then Quintana in the White Sox game last Sunday, lefties have really held them down.
Big moment right here, not only for Jake but for the club.
George Springer on deck. Fly ball out to left field. Davis to end the 7th. No runs, 1 hit, 1 error, 1 left. We go to the 8th, 1-0 Oakland.
Seven at Minute Maid. 2016 Coca-Cola Astros Buddies memberships are on sale for only $25. Buddies members receive a voucher for 4 tickets to a select Astros game, front of the line access to Kids Run the Bases, exclusive player autograph sessions, and more. Visit Astros.com/buddies for all the details and to purchase a membership for kids up to 12 years old.
Thank you, Brett Dolan. Pat Neshek takes over in the 8th inning. It's 1-0 Oakland through 7. Neshek facing catcher Matt McBride. McBride is 1 for 2. He has scored the only run. They strike 1 after a fine day from Dallas Keuchel. Neshek 2-1, a 2.63 ERA, a 0.91 WHIP. Last 7 outings have been scoreless for Pat. Foul back, and it's 0-2 for Keuchel. It was 7 innings today, 4 hits, 1 run, 2 walks, 5 strikeouts. 99 pitches, 61 strikes.
And very promising, obviously, but at the moment promising is not the W you're looking for, and that's really not on Dallas at all. It's the offense.
Yeah, he did his job very well. 1-2. The Astros will have the top of the order due up. Springer, Gonzalez, and Altuve in the bottom of the inning. Neshek throws outside. 2-2. Pat last pitched on Thursday. One scoreless inning.
Got some impressive numbers. The hits per inning. 5.5 hits per 9 innings this year.
Danny Worth goes out. Here's Jake Marisnick. 1 out. And Coco Crisp will come up for the 4th time. He's 0 for 2 with a sac bunt. Neshek is holding right-handed hitters to a 121 average. Crisp has the advantage of being a switch hitter. Marcus Semien's on deck. 5 hits for Houston, 4 for Oakland. And there has not been an extra base hit in this game. Foul for strike 1. Now, Keuchel was really putting the ball where he wanted in this game.
Thought he got a little better as the game went on, but it's not like he was far off right there in the 1st inning. Pretty solid all the way.
One and one. I asked Neshek if he had played on a team that had had a turnaround similar to the one the Astros have had this year. That's driven up the right field line and foul. Been a long way foul by Crisp. 1-2. He said on the 2006 Minnesota Twins they had a terrible start. And then they really got things rolling and they wound up making the playoffs. In fact, they wound up winning their division. But she doesn't care much about that. Two and 2. He said they won their final 3 games and the Detroit Tigers lost their final 3 games that year. For Minnesota to finish 1st. Crisp wasn't biting. Strike 3. Steamed it in there for out number 2.
May not be biting, but he got harpooned on that one. Just perfectly spotted. With that kind of work, left-hand hitters might have some difficulties as well.
You're right.
Watching that strike zone, that found a lot more than I thought to begin with.
Yes. Marcus Semien 1 for 3. That's the only RBI in this game. They strike 1 to him. Well, that pitch is the one Kendall Graveman threw yesterday so well. Sinker inside to left-handed batters.
So you watch one day in baseball and it's hard to determine, was the pitching really sharp, was the offense scuffling? You watch back-to-back days and I think you'd have to say right now the Astros offense has found a lull in the action.
Ready for a break?
Well, maybe so, but break it out before they break.
2 and 1. Check swing roller. That's a fair ball. An easy out number 3. Semien didn't break from the box. We go to the bottom of the 8th inning and it's 1-0 Oakland.
Yankees lead over the Astros, bottom of the 8th inning coming up. Time now to take a look at the Academy homers for Houston. As we see club home run leaders right now, George Springer easily on top of that list. Jose Altuve has been quiet lately. Carlos Correa, Evan Gattis, Luis Valbuena, Kobe Rasmus, the names on the list. Any in that group would suffice for us right now.
Not too good at all, Ash. John Axford is 3-2. 10 holds, a 5.24 ERA. He's been up and down, but he has pitched well in all 3 of his outings against the Astros this year. He comes in with a 1-0 lead, and Josh Reddick has taken over in right field for Jake Smolinski. Smolinski was 0 for 3. Reddick is a better defensive player. George Springer is 1 for 3. Axford, 33 years old, was the closer in Milwaukee and one of the best in the National League. Now a setup man. Sean Manaea in 7 innings allowed 5 hits, no runs, with no walks, 6 strikeouts through 106 pitches. Axford at 96 throws ball 1 to Springer.
Yeah, you see right away with that velocity why he was a top-notch closer.
Lately, he's fallen upon hard times, although he pitched well against the Astros in the 3-1 win Thursday night. 1 hitless inning. In for a strike, and it's 1-1 to Springer with Gonzalez and Altuve to follow.
A little bit of a cutter that stays up.
Of Manaea's 106 pitches, 72 were strikes. One and 2 to Springer. Axford has given up 12 runs in his last 7 2/3 innings. He has 4 blown saves. That's tied for 4th among American League relievers.
In 5 tries.
That's a swing, and it's a strikeout for Axford. Number 7 for Oakland pitching.
What you see from George Springer as he walks away is information being imparted to Marwin Gonzalez. Rather than complaining about the call, immediately letting next hitter know exactly what he saw.
Excellent point. Marwin's 0 for 3. He reached on an error in the 6th inning. Cubs lead the Pirates 6-5, top of the 9th at Pittsburgh. Ball 1. Axford signed with the Yankees in 06. That didn't work out, and then Milwaukee picked him up as a free agent in 08. Fly ball to left. Davis. 2 down.
Let's take a look now at the Ford spray chart. As we look at Jose Altuve coming to the plate. That's right-hand pitching, and that's what he's going to see right now. On the left-hand side, you can see all the hot areas. But the thing about Altuve is when he gets it hot, you can put it anywhere you want to put it. He's going to put barrel on it. Now let's see if we can find one of those spots and juice this thing up a little bit.
Altuve 0 for 1 with 2 sac bunts. He's 0 for 4 lifetime, but he's still their hero. Against Axford, he's 0 for 4. Altuve looks at ball 1.
Looked a little like Johnny Carson putting that card on his forehead there and divining what was coming up. Altuve is my hero.
Foul ball makes it 1-1. Axford was born in Ontario, Canada. He is 6'5". The closer is Ryan Madsen. 1-2. Carlos Correa on deck. Foul ball by Altuve. The Astros yesterday were shut out until they got 2 in the 9th in a 3-2 loss. Once again in this game, have not been able to score. They got 1 run Thursday night, and that was it. Against Rich Hill in the bullpen, including Axford, in a 3-1 loss to Oakland. Strike 3 call. That ends the 8th. We move to the 9th. 1-0 Oakland.
MLB.TV Premium, the #1 live streaming sports service, delivers everything you have come to expect and more. Watch every out-of-market game live in HD on over 400 supported devices. It includes a free subscription to At-Bat Premium, the #1 app for live baseball. Blackout and other restrictions apply. Visit MLB.TV for more details. So Luke Gregerson on the pitch here in the 9th inning.
In a 1-0 game, Gregerson, after Pat Neshek had a 1-2-3/8 with a strikeout, comes in at 3-1, 14 saves and 19 opportunities, a 3.52 ERA.
Right-hand hitters, next to no chance against him. He's had some good 8th innings recently.
Now working the 9th in a 1-0 game. It's Jed Lowry up first. Lowry is 1 for 3. The Astros shift the infield, playing him to pull. He hits it back the other way. Backhanded Correa from the outfield grass. 1 out.
All the tools at short. Dell, did that catch some of the foot?
It looked like he tried to stick his foot out. Couldn't tell if it did.
Maybe so.
That might have hit him. Danny Valencia looks at strike 1. Valencia's 0 for 1 with 2 walks. Chris Davis is on deck. No balls, 2 strikes for Luke Gregerson.
Got that over the top slider working well, and that was the fastball sinking nicely.
just off the plate. 1-2.
I think you can tell by the reaction Luke felt like he'd possibly earned one.
Yep. Gaddis held it there for a beat. Gregerson began his career with St. Louis. He joined Oakland in a trade in December of 2013. He strikes out Valencia. 2 outs. It'll be Correa, Gomez, Valbuena in the bottom half.
Right back to the slide piece. He'll get on top of that thing extremely well.
Chris Davis is 0 for 3, 2 ground outs and a fly ball. Pat Neshek threw 14 pitches, 8 were strikes, and his 1 clean inning with a strikeout. Ryan Madson's getting loose for Oakland. In for strike 1. And 2. The Astros have handed Madson 2 losses this year. Gregerson struck him out. We go to the bottom of the 9th inning. Correa, Gomez, Valbuena due up. Oakland 1, Houston nothing. Houston Astros baseball on Root Sports is brought to you by Southwest Airlines. Transparency, low fares, nothing to hide. And by Lexus, the new 2016 Lexus ES and ES Hybrid. It's next level luxury. It's 1-0. The Athletics leading the Astros going to the bottom of the 9th inning. John Axford had a 1-2-3-8 with 2 strikeouts. Here's the closer, Ryan Madson. He's 3-3, 17 of 21 in saves.
He's already had his feel of having a tough time with the Astros. Back it up again today. 17 of 21.
Well, twice Ryan Madson has been tagged with losses here in Houston. Carlos Correa tagged him with 1 with a game winner. That was June 4th in the 12th inning. Correa 1 for 3 in this game, and then Luis Valbuena with a 3-run walk-off homer here Friday night, and that gave him 3 earned runs in 1/3 of an inning in taking that blown save and loss. Ball 1 to Correa, who singled to right on a broken bat hit in the first. He's 1 for 3.
Very well spotted, and Carlos Correa gets the edge there.
In the dirt, 2-0. The Astros' last 1-0 loss was against Tampa Bay's Chris Archer, August 20th last year. Madsen got a save in a 2-0 Oakland win over Houston. April 30th this year. That was a combined 4-hitter. Jesse Hahn was the starter for Oakland in that one. Now ball 3. Madsen, 35 years old. He's been with the Phillies, Cincinnati, and joined Oakland as a free agent last December on a 3-year, $22 million deal. Gomez is on deck, and Valbuena. Strike makes it 3-1.
Yeah, I'm good with Carlos Correa getting a big hack or two in here.
In the air, and the shortstop, Simeon, takes care of out number 1. Pop up on a 3-1 pitch gets Madsen 1 out. Mark Gomez, he's 0 for 3.
Look like Carlos got a pitch to handle, but when a team is in a funk, it means almost everybody.
The Astros have been shut out 4 times this season. Oakland has pitched 2 shutouts. Ball 1. Valencia is even with the bag at third. Bouncer in the hole at shortstop. Simeon throwing from the grass on a bounce, not in time, and offline. Gomez is on with 1 out on a single.
Well, you got some speed aboard, and now you try to come up with how to play this with Gomez aboard. When the bats are not hot, most often you have to manufacture.
Here's Luis Valbuena Friday night off Madsen. 10-9 Houston. 3-run shot. He fouls it for strike 1. Valbuena's 1 for 3 in this game.
And good for Luis. He did not get cheated here.
Another big late inning hit yesterday in the 9th inning, a 2-out RBI single to left field. Brian Dahl to pull the Astros to within 1. One and 1.
Ooh, that looked pretty close.
Gomez has 8 steals in 10 tries. Evan Gattis is on deck. Gomez goes. Swing and a miss, and a late throw. He steals it. That's his 9th. The count going to 1 and 2.
Second time we've seen a stolen base today with McBride, the catcher, apparently not being aware of the runner in motion.
Yeah. Threw very late. Second steal for the Astros today. Evan Gattis got one back in the 2nd inning. Schuster and Mark Zepchinski are warming up. Now with first base open, they talk it over with a 1-2 count on Valbuena. Make sure they know exactly what the strategy is. And now Bob Melvin with the apparent indecision. He's going to go out and talk directly to his battery mates. Make sure they know exactly what the plan is.
They're in that spot where you really don't like facing the guy you're facing, Valbuena, but you don't want to put him on board to be that potential winning run on base.
Exactly. 12 last at bat wins for the Astros. Left-handed hitters are hitting .259 against Madsen. 4 homers and 58 at bats. High out to right field. Reddick is underneath it. And that's out number 2. Here's the tag by Gomez. Gomez on the throw, gets into third. 2 outs, and it'll be Evan Gattis.
That's a just missed it swing. I mean, just a fraction under the baseball. Otherwise, you're celebrating right now.
Evan Gattis is 1 for 3. A.J. Reed comes out to the on-deck circle with Danny Worth due up next. Astros down to their final out. Gattis with a bouncer, and it's foul for strike 1. Madsen pitched for Kansas City last year. He was a winning pitcher in Game 4 of the ALDS. 1-1. Despite giving up back-to-back homers in the 7th inning. Carlos Correa and Colby Rasmus. Valbuena just missing. He roots for Gattis. Shot left field. That is going to be a fair ball. That's going to tie it. Now Gattis into second base, and the Astros have life. RBI double. Evan Gattis. What a time for him.
Evan had been struggling until the most recent 2 at-bats. Got to get some guys swinging it now. Got one center cut and kept it inside that foul line.
That's the first extra base hit of this ball game. That came with 2 outs in the 9th inning. Now the pinch hitter is A.J. Reed, batting for Danny Worth. Reed, a 147 hitter with 2 homers, has 4 runs batted in. Reed looks at ball 1. 1 for 2 as a pinch hitter, and that hit was a home run.
That RBI takes Dallas Keuchel off the hook, and now that's very deserving. But again, it's about the W.
Reed hit a pinch homer here off David Robertson, the White Sox closer. It goes to 2-0. That's the 5th blown save for Ryan Madson. 3 have come against the Houston Astros. Colby Rasmus on deck with Jake Marisnick 2 up next. On Reed, who is 1 for 6 in this series. He's hit 2 homers on this homestand, hitting .263.
I was surprised in the order of the pinch hitters right here. I might have guessed Colby in front of Reed.
We know Colby still is not feeling good with that ear infection. That may have something to do with that. 2-2. Ball 3. Full count to Reed, 23 years old from Terre Haute, Indiana. Second round pick of the Astros in 2014. He led the minor leagues in homers and runs batted in last year, dividing the season between Lancaster and Corpus Christi. Struck him out, and we'll have extra innings from Minute Maid Park. The Astros tie it on Evan Gattis' 2-out 9th inning double. It's 1 run, 2 hits, and a man left. We move to the 10th. Athletics won. Astros won. Extra innings are brought to you by Jack Link's Beef Jerky all season long. Jack Link's Beef Jerky. Feed your wild side. And it is extra innings for the Astros for the 12th time this season. They are 7-4 in extra inning games. And for Oakland, a 2-2 record in extra frames. Will Harris comes in for Houston after Luke Gregerson had a 1-2-3 ninth with 2 strikeouts.
Yeah, for Will Harris, not a save opportunity, obviously. Just lock it down right here and let the offense kind of once again try to find life.
Other changes for A.J. Hinch involve new first baseman A.J. Reed, and moving from first to second, Marwin Gonzalez. Remaining bench players unused: Colby Rasmus and Jason Castro for Houston. Billy Butler is 1 for 3. That's ball 1 from Harris. Butler singled in the second inning. He was thrown out trying to turn that into a double by Gomez. Outside the right field line and out of play for George Springer. 1-1. Astros won a 12-inning game here from Oakland June 4th, 6-5. Foul back. 1-2. Will Harris did not have his curveball, and he gave up those first extra base hits of the year. You might have noticed on that graphic, and that's what made it difficult for him on Friday night, as he gave up 4 hits and 4 runs in 1/3 of an inning. Correa. 1 out. This bullpen has done a job today. That's 7 straight retired by Neshek, Ferguson, and Harris. Keuchel retired the last 4 men he faced. Oakland hasn't had a hit since the 6th. Josh Reddick is the batter for the first time in this game. He came in as a defensive replacement for Jake Smolinski in right field. And the appeal went down to third base. The umpire there, Kerwin Danley, indicated a check swing for Reddick. Reddick, a .296 hitter, has 5 homers, 20 runs batted in. He's had 189 at bats. Ground ball, and that's backhanded. Here's a jump throw. What a play by Marwin Gonzalez, who just moved from first to second base.
You know, in the midst of all of that, I don't think Marwin caught that ball cleanly. I think it was kind of sitting on his glove, and so he had to acrobatically come up with this. See where the ball's sitting? Yeah, and he finally actually was able to coax it into the pocket, but oh, that's a heck of a play. Ooh.
Magical juggling play.
Right on the heel to start with, and you can feel it. And he just worked it on in.
Glove was behind his back at one point. That is spectacular by Marwin. Yonder Alonso is 0 for 3. Astros have out-hit the Athletics 7-4. Oakland has all 3 errors. And for strike 1 for Will Harris. Pitching in this 1-1 tie game, he was 9 for 9 in saves. And that's the way things went in that transition at closer from Luke Gregerson to Will Harris. Wound up. He did not get a blown save Friday night. 2 balls and a strike, so he still is 9 for 9. Friday was the first time he had allowed multiple runs in a game all season. (3-1) now. Stephen Vogt is on deck with Matt McBride 2 up next. But sharply, there's Reed. And the good bullpen work continues for Houston. Bottom of the 10th is coming. 1-1. Welcome to the dating game with Jim Lang. It's the Athletics 1, the Astros 1. We go to the bottom of the 10th inning. And who's our next contestant, Alan Ashby?
Who is that next contestant out there? It's Liam Hendriks, of course. 0-1 for the Oakland A's. He has not held a game for them this year. He's not in a position to do so right now. And the ERA would indicate that Mr. Hendriks has had a rough time.
The Astros rescued the tie with 2 outs in the 9th. Gomez reached on an infield hit. He stole second, advanced to third on a fly ball, and scored on a double by Evan Gattis. Now they try to win it with Jake Marisnick due up first, then Springer, then Gonzalez in the Astros 10th inning. Oh, Hendriks, who's 27, is from Perth, Australia. They're hoping it is a Jake day they can celebrate. Marisnick 0 for 3 in this one. Hendriks came off the disabled list June 19th, and he's pitched pretty well since then. Line shot center field. That's a hit. Marisnick attacked that baseball.
Well, that was a lot better. Like Brownie says, nice attack job by Jake. Drops barrel to it and tries to start a rally.
Sharply hit. Marisnick with Springer in the box, measures his lead. Springer is 1 for 4. Marwin Gonzalez is on deck. Valencia in tight at third. Springer around the bunt, takes ball 1.
Most people around Major League Baseball are not big fans of the sacrifice bunt. You'll see the big innings, but right now a big inning is 1 run.
Springer does not have a sac bunt this year. Marisnick goes diving back in. Marisnick is a good base stealer, as you know. Whether he'll be running here or not, we're about to find out. He's 4 for 7 this year. But his overall percentage is much higher than that. Takes a strike. 1-1 to George. Marisnick was terrific in stealing bases last year.
You know, the fact that we haven't seen a throw really come from behind home plate on the stolen base attempt probably livens up this possibility of the running game.
Yep. George fouls it. Ken Giles is warming up in the Houston bullpen. Marisnick had 24 steals at 33 tries last year.
I'll tell you who's throwing water on the chances, though, is Liam Hendriks. Nice little quick slide step.
Yeah. One and 2 now. In the dirt. 2-2. Earlier we said that the Astros were 49-42 at the All-Star break last year, but they lost their last 6 games prior to the break last year. If they win this one, like last year, they will go to the break 7 games above 500. And another throw goes over. Yeah, it is tough to run in this weather, right? Hendriks was with Toronto last season. The Astros have faced him only once this year. That was in Oakland, May 1st. He worked a hitless, scoreless inning. Upstairs, and now it's a full count. And now does Marisnick take off.
Boy, this does set up one of those do you or don't you. Tough to run on a guy that's quick to the plate. Hendriks is all of that. 3 and 2. Do you take that chance? Springer's a guy who strikes out a lot.
Yep.
So you got a lot of conflicting data going on here.
A lot to process for A.J. Hinch. He's going. And that will go over first base and just foul.
Oh, so close. Obviously, the Astros willing to run in that scenario. George shattered the bat on this little flare that he dropped out there.
And you see the umpire, DJ Rayburn, had his mechanics turned. He was looking and he saw it and foul.
With Jake on the move right there, would have loved to have seen that one play out.
Oh, yeah. Springer is one homer away from number 20. Runner going. Tap foul. George had 20 homers in 2014, and that was in 295 at-bats. He has 354 at-bats right now. Last year he hit 16 homers and 388 at-bats. And the throw goes over. Atlanta beat the White Sox 2-0 in Chicago. Mike Foltynewicz won it, beating James Shields. Marisnick goes. Here's the strikeout and the throw, not in time. He stole it. 1 out.
Big 90 feet right there. Matt McBride, the catcher, doesn't look like a guy who is a catcher. I mean, his receiving has been fine, but throwing game looks very awkward.
Yeah, those throws have been coming out really late. Now, Bob Melvin is out. Was there some problem with the batter?
I don't think so.
No.
You see anything there that would?
No.
I didn't either.
Fifth steal for Marisnick.
Yeah, that action behind the plate looks like somebody who might be kind of emergency catching, aside from the fact that he's done a real nice job receiving.
Yes, he has. Now, after the steal, runner at second, 1 out. Marwin Gonzalez 0 for 4. Bounced wide of first base. Strike 1 to Marwin. Astros got their 7th walk-off win of the year. They walked off on Oakland Friday night in that 10-9 thriller with Buena coming through. 2 career walk-off hits for Marwin. A 2-run homer last May 11th against Cleveland involved. Marwin also had a game-winning hit against the Angels in the 8th inning, an RBI triple, June 22nd. Jose Altuve is on deck. 8 hits for the Astros, 4 for the Athletics. And Marwin steps away. Marwin has had a lot of playing time. More than 250 at bats this season. Out of play. 1-2. shown his versatility during this game, starting at first base, moving to second. Made a spectacular play in the top of the inning on Reddick. Now he tries to win it in the bottom half. That would almost hit him. He hit the deck. 2-2.
So there you go. McBride very good in his receiving skills, blocking a tough pitch right here. And I don't know that you press Marisnick into trying to steal third base at this stage of things, but throwing part of the game for McBride, not good.
Minnesota leads Texas 6-2 in the top of the seventh. Hot shot. What a play there. Alonso just stole a hit away, and he keeps the Astros from winning this ball game with a fine effort near the first base line.
Talk to the folks with the Oakland A's. They'll tell you that that young man down at first base can flat play the defensive position, and he took a victory right out of the Astros' hands with this play. That was a rocket.
Marisnick to third, 2 outs. Jose Altuve, the batter. Altuve is 0 for 2 with a pair of sacrifice bunts. Carlos Correa on deck. Ball 1. You could be surprised if you saw anything to hit here.
Yeah, the tough part of this order is Altuve's the guy you don't want to face. Oh, that's right. Carlos Correa's the guy you don't want to face too. And so, yeah, I think you have to face him, but I don't think you want to give in at any point, and Altuve has not been hot.
Right. 2-0. He has come a little bit out of the zone he had been in for so long. He has expanded his strike zone in a few at-bats during this homestand. So right now, he might be an easier out than he has been all year.
Now they prove that they don't want to face him, the Oakland A's.
There's still that Altuve magic, and they prefer not to work to him. They were hoping he would chase, and he didn't. And the intentional walks continue to come Altuve's way. It's the 8th time this year he's been walked intentionally. And Carlos Correa gets a chance to win it. He is 1 for 4.
And Carlos Correa has had his opportunities to win games this year, and he has taken advantage numerous times. Sometimes with the little flare hit, sometimes with the long ball, late 13th inning in that case. But he can do it all. That one he just made look so easy.
He's provided 5 of the 12 last at-bat wins for the Astros. Altuve's not being held at first base. Correa 1 for 4. One strike one.
The thing is, if you let Altuve run, you encourage the free pass to Correa.
Yes, sir. Gomez on deck. That means they're allowing him to run, but he won't run. He wants Correa to hit. 1-1.
I'm actually a bit surprised the A's don't just go ahead and walk Correa. And it could happen at some point in this at bat.
Yes, it could. Ground ball third. Valencia long throw. Offline, and the Astros win it. homestand with the heroics, and this one involves a ground ball hit by Correa, a long throw by Valencia. It pulled Alonso off the bag, and the Astros win it 2-1 in the 10th inning.
You know what, Brownie, a win is a win, and it's really on the big side. As you go into the All-Star break, Correa hustles it out. I believe they've called it an E5, but it doesn't matter in the end. The hustle of Carlos Correa buys the Astros a win right now.
You know, he might have been able to beat this.
You're right. You're right. That's really close.
Let's see with a throw. Does he beat it? Maybe not, but close call. You're right.
You know what you don't have to debate? Who the winner of today's game is.
Well, that's the 13th time the Astros have won in their last at bat, and in 6 of them, Correa has been the guy at the plate who's provided that game-winning run. Once again, Carlos Correa comes up big, and the Astros win it 2-1 in the 10th.